Aloha, I'm Wendy Osher from Maui now. We're here with Destin, Daniel, Cretton. Congratulations on Shang-Chi.
Thank you, Wendy.
So it's the latest Marvel film hitting theaters and the first Asian superhero film of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We're speaking, of course, to the director who was born and raised right here on Maui. Tell us a little bit about your history on the island and what brought you to the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Oh man, that's a, a long journey. I grew up in Haiku. I grew up with my five siblings, like 5 minutes from Fukushima store. Um, I had a pretty typical Maui childhood, playing in the pineapple fields and being outside every day and going to Hokipa. I I I found my way to Hollywood in a kind of slow arc. I went to school in San Diego. I went to Point Loma Nazarene University, and then I took a break after I graduated and worked. That's when I worked in a group home for at-risk teenagers for 2 years, and then after that, I ended up going to film school. Throughout all this time, I was just always fascinated by telling stories through film since I was a little kid. I used to make movies with my brothers and sisters in the backyard with my grandma's VHS camcorder. And it was just a hobby that slowly over time turned into a career. And now I'm doing a Marvel movie, and I do feel very, very grateful to be where I am.
Awesome. So, as I had mentioned, there's the portrayal of Asians in many films to date has not always been representative of the culture or traditions. What were you able to do to ensure that the film was a proper reflection, not only of the culture, but of the current times that we're in and a break from the stereotypes that we've seen in the past?
I mean, that was our number one goal from the beginning, was to be able to populate the world of this movie with Asian characters who felt like my friends, who felt like people that I know, who reflected the world that we all are operating in. And I think a lot of times in the past, Asian characters in at least Western cinema tend to be the butt of jokes, or just the sidekick, or the wise old man. And we tried to break all of those stereotypes in this movie, primarily by casting actors who we felt would naturally break those stereotypes and would add a personality and a relatability to these characters, whether they are our lead Shang-Chi, played by Simu Liu, or our antagonist Wen Wu, played by Tony Leung. I think they both bring a charisma and a surprising personality that anyone can relate to, even though one is a budding superhero and the other one is technically a villain. I think you'll be surprised by how much you actually have in common with these characters.
Right along those lines as well, one of the actors, Aquafina, was here on Maui recently for the Maui Film Festival where she was honored. How did you source the actors? Are they people that you've run into in the past through previous projects, or was it just a whole new process?
Yeah, this was a whole new I've actually never had the joy of meeting Aquafina before. Any of these actors before. We did we did a general casting call for a lot of the roles through Sarah Finn, our casting director, and that's how I discovered Simu. It wasn't initially through Kim's Convenience; it was through his audition, and then I watched clips from Kim's Convenience. But Aquafina was someone that we're obviously very aware of, and she was the perfect person to play this role. So she actually was the first actor that we cast in the movie. And I just met her at a coffee shop, and we had a great conversation about what the story would be and what her character would be. And thank goodness she signed on, because she brings so much to this film.
Awesome. I hear that it was a collaborative effort, unlike the vacuum that some screenwriters face as they venture into creative storytelling. What was different about the Marvel process for you?
Uh, the main difference in the Marvel process is that everything happens at once. Typically you start to write a script, you jump through the hoops of trying to convince somebody to make it into a movie, and you constantly rewrite it until somebody thinks it's good enough to greenlight, and then you start shooting that script that was greenlit. A Marvel movie is greenlit from the inception of the concept and the idea. So we have all of the resources of the studio. We know when the movie is going to start shooting, before we even start writing the script, and so we have to start going. And uh, what actually starts to happen, um, aside from it being pretty stressful at first, and because I've never worked like that, but what starts to happen is a cross pollination of ideas, both as our other department heads start to sign on to the project. And when Sue Chan, our production designer, came onto the project and started creating worlds and giving us drawings of ideas of what the different sets could be, and what Wenwu's compound could look like, those ideas start to then make their way back into the script that we're constantly writing and revising, and everything starts to kind of happen at once, which was kind of a scary part of the process at first, but it actually became quite exhilarating to work like that.
Awesome. What was your favorite part of the movie? Was there any particular scene that stands out that we should look for?
Yeah, I mean, there's one moment in the movie that was um, very special to me, because I had nothing to do with it. It's a moment when Tony Leung is sitting in his library, and he's suited up to go into battle, and he's having a moment alone, and he looks off camera and just has a simple memory about his wife. And the way Tony played it was so uh, it was so tragic and so surprisingly soft and emotional. And none of that was actually written in the script, and it was a very surprising moment uh, as a director, which was very satisfying to experience.
Awesome. I hear that there's parts in the post-credit scenes that real fans of Marvel should wait for when the credits are rolling. So
Yes,
everybody should.
uh, yeah. In true Marvel tradition, um, you if you stick around through the end credits, you will be rewarded. So I love it, because it also gives people an opportunity to read the over 3,000 names that it took to make a movie like this. But then you also get to experience uh, some some little bonus nuggets in the end.
Rolling a little bit backwards to your youth growing up on Maui, were you a comic book fan, or like what were you into that turned you into a great movie director?
Um, it I it honestly, what I think it was the encouragement of my mom and my grandma to be creative. I think my mom got it from my grandma. But there was a lot of encouragement in my family for us to get outside and make make skits and plays. And when my grandma got her VHS camcorder, she let me borrow it for a weekend. And then that weekend turned into me just keeping it for years. And we started making short films and commercials, and it was really that um, that creativity that my mom was always kind of pushing us to do since we are really little, that I think got me to be able to be sitting in the director's chair.
Great. So again, we're with Destin Daniel Cretton of Marvel Studios. Shang-Chi opens, The Legend of the Ten Rings opens in theaters officially this Friday, September 3rd, correct?
Yes, September 3rd. Can't wait for everyone to see it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. And um, anyone who's watching this can check out more on our website at mauinow.com. I'm Wendy Osher.